Welcome to the Business Insider interview series.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. And as we just talked about, it is about some insight into Argyle and also Graham, and then what gets you here and why you're here. So I might start with that. 15 years ago you had a partner, then Scott came on board.
Yeah, my partner's since passed away. He was in his 80s, Billy Donnelly, great fellow, and we were together for a long, long time, since the late 70s. I worked on my own for a while, and then I got some illness. My son came back from Japan to help me and stayed, and Scott's still there today.
Mm-hmm. Tell me some of the good things and some of the bad things that you did early on.
Probably the worst things I did early on was listing the wrong businesses, doing that for the purpose of hoping I was going to sell them,
Mm-hmm.
and realising that selling poor businesses is very hard. Selling medium businesses is also very hard, but selling a good business is much easier, and you have to go through the same process. So very early in our development, we just decided to sell the best businesses that were available in the marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
and have continually do that. Often people are surprised when I tell them, but we probably list 1 in 10, which obviously blows a lot of people away, because there's a lot of work goes into looking at those other 9. We don't just dismiss them, we try and pass them on to someone who may be able to help them. But it's not us.
Okay. Do you? It's obviously more than just money when you're looking to define a good business. Are there flags or indicators of good businesses?
Yeah, a general term for us. If we've got a good quality business, often we're approached by the banks that already have the business and they want to retain the business. That's a sure sign. Having good communications with their accountants and advisors to be able to make sure we're all on the same page and we know what we've got to sell and we know we're going to sell it. And especially more recently, we probably spend more time on assisting in the funding of the business than anything else, because
Sorry, what does that mean?
Well, the purchasers often come to us and believing that they have the equity and the capacity to be able to buy. When they get down to the nitty-gritty, often they don't, and that's where we'll step in and say, well, we believe the person who would fund this is this organisation or is that organisation. Sometimes it's not a banker, it might be a second-tier lender who would have some interest in that business, trying to think outside the square a little bit and saying, well, can we fund some other parts of the business in a different way than you would traditionally do through the bank? Because all the bank wants essentially is your home. So if anything does go wrong, the shareholders are well protected, which is obviously the correct course for the bank.
So actually, interestingly, this is going out to business owners, successful business people, or people who would love to be successful and at some point sell their business. Are there 2 or 3 things that you would tell them now? If you're looking to add value to your business, this is what?
Well, when we go out and see somebody, obviously we give them our company profile, commission structure. We give them a couple of pages of recent sales, phone numbers of vendors, so they can check us out from a what sort of job did we do, a reference if you like.
But no, what can they do, I guess?
Well, we also give them a page on preparing your business for sale. And selling your business is no different than selling your home, your car. Often people do things to their homes and cars when they come to sell them. But they don't do them
before.
That's right. Yeah, I've done it myself. A cracked windscreen, 3 years. Come to sell the car, put a new windscreen in. No one wants to buy a car with a cracked windscreen. And a business is the same. If it's got some cracks in it, they need to be plugged, and if it's got some problems, they need to be exposed and fixed. So when the person buys it, we can say these are the. Sometimes it's good for someone to know where the business was, where it is now, and where it is going. We spend a lot of time on preparation of a overview. So we'll often ask our vendors to prepare an overview by giving them a sample overview of not a similar type of business, but a business. They will have a go at that, and then we will edit it for them, so we end up with a document that is acceptable to the marketplace, and understand the marketplace will understand that document.
Yeah. Okay. This year is going to be an interesting year. Your view on things that need to change from your perspective, and then also the businesses you're selling. Do they need to be realistic? Do they need to be more aggressive? What's the story?
The marketplace has changed substantially, and at the end of the day, I only work in a marketplace, and we have to try and stress to people, when I'm valuing a business, it's not Graham McMullen's personal value, it is my professional opinion on what the market will pay for that business. Like real estate will rise and fall in certain markets and sectors, businesses are no different, and there's a certain group of businesses that have fallen dramatically in the last couple of years, and that has been because of the bank's attitude to that style of business. Funding has fallen away, and it's actually driven the business down, because the banks have said, well, we'll take a different position on equity in that business. So where we might have given 60% goodwill.
What sort of areas, what sort of sectors are suffering?
Maybe I would say liquor stores, news agencies, anything with a license attached to it, franchises, a classic example where banks were supporting franchises, where the franchise, an equitable mortgage over the franchise of 50%, and then they would look at the other equity in homes, cash, bonds for the balance. That may now drop down to 20% or 25%. Wow. Okay. So you've got a situation where obviously there's been sufficient failures for the banks to be very conservative, which they are by nature anyway.
And on the other hand, do you see industries or sectors where values are lifting?
Supply and demand sectors are very important. If someone has got, a recent sale comes to mind where a fellow had a indoor sports centre. Now the last one I sold was 19 years ago. So I made the comment to him that you don't need me to sell it. You could just put an ad in the paper and sell it yourself. What we can do is probably get you a lot more money than what you can do, because we can drive a wedge between 5 or 6 players, and they will pay a premium for that. My fee is going to be insignificant when you look at the extra money we will achieve for you. And he listed it with us, and we ended up with 5 players with 5 offers, and he ended up selling it to whom he liked. But I suggested a stronger person.
That's good for you and for him. I was more, that's a health area or a fitness and exercise area? Are they good? I'm just trying to get.
I think so. I mean, there's more boot camps around now. Go down to any of the beaches today, and there's people running all over the place, fat, skinny, tall, short, and they're all mixed in together. So where you wouldn't have had that 10 years ago, it just wouldn't happen. And I think it's there's more of a consciousness of people being fit today. And an awareness, and it's a growing area.
Yeah. So where else? You had 5 interested buyers there. Where else will buyers queue up? And now,
I know I said liquor stores may have gone off a bit, but if a liquor store is in a particular area, we've got a wedge driver between, say, the majors, so your Woolies and Coles and people like that will come in and buy something to keep the competitor out and obviously get their market share. Yeah. And we have seen that on a number of occasions where I've seen multiples of 7 times the net, which is no normal human being will consider that, because it's beyond their lifetime. Of course, Woolies and Coles don't die, they just keep on going forever and ever and ever, and they look at a smaller return on investment initially, but of course their ultimate profit is long term, where we all look as a human being more short term.
Okay. We talk about work-life balance. Is there, and we're talking to someone who has been practicing this for quite a while, and to a long time. Have you got that right yet?
Oh, absolutely. 32 years ago I was cured. You've got to remember in my business...
You had an event then that caused you
Well,
to...
no, I worked very hard. I've always worked hard. I consider I always work hard, 7 days a week if it need to be, to satisfy the needs of the marketplace. And I will always then take a holiday. I won't take a mobile phone on a holiday. I won't even take a mobile phone down the beach. What I noticed is when I talk to a lot of business proprietors, they have this disease. If I'm not here, my business is not successful. And they're constantly, even on holidays, they're on their mobile phones, they're emailing, they're texting, they're doing all the things that they would do in a normal day-to-day environment of when they're in their business, but they can't pull away from it. And I've got that down really well now, where I would say up until the last 5 years I probably work in real terms about 7 months of the year, and I have the rest of the time off. That's just I don't go away for any long period of time, but 2 weeks here, a week here, 5 days here, a few days. Short breaks really keep you refreshed and keep your mind very, very active. The disease is that I was cured of it in a business venture that I had for some time, and when I sold that business venture I was contracted to stay there for 6 months, and within the first 3 months the proprietor went on his annual leave, and I said to him, well, but you've just bought this, you can't do that. And he said, well, hang on, he said, we've got a sales manager, a factory manager, we've got all these people, can't they do the job? And I said, well, yes, I'm going on holidays. And when he came back I realised the business had performed exactly the same, whether he was there or whether he wasn't, because he had the right people there. And that is a mistake of a lot of people, of course, don't have the right people. So they'd rather pay someone less and think they're getting a good buy out of that party and then complain about them.
Why don't they see they just see that one payment, that weekly salary of,
yes,
that adds up to $40,000 instead of $80,000, and they think they're making that.
Yes, I am absolutely surprised at the amount of people I meet who I think are highly intelligent business proprietors, men and women. There's no boundary here, and they are proud of how little they pay somebody and how much they're trying to get out of them. Where I would rather meet a proprietor who tells me how much he pays somebody and how good they are. And you don't see a lot of that, unfortunately, in small enterprises. And again, I've seen experiences where staff have paid exceptionally well and the results are staggering in their business model. I'd like to hope we're going to see more of that in the future. And as I do larger businesses, I do see more of that. And I've been involved in that myself and seen it work.
When you talk to the 9 out of the 10 people that you reject, is that a common thread, that lack of valuing of people? Or
yes, that's one of them. The other one is what I would call fraudulent activity, where they want me to act as the I don't know if you even want to film this, but whether they want me to act as a conduit. I mean, all an agent is a conduit, and we say to everybody we know a little bit about everything and a lot about nothing, but we're exposed to many industries. Last week I was in a brothel, and it's a business.
Well, I think we should cut there, surely.
Yeah. And that's an excellent business, but a cash component came out because, obviously, for obvious reasons, credit cards are accepted, but a lot of cash goes through. I was expected to use that cash as a draw card to bring in a buyer. I wouldn't do that because we use the numbers and the numbers only. Yeah.
Well, it's the classic, and I could. Some history in retail, and people said, well, did you run 2 books? I was always confused with 1 set of books, let alone 2 sets of books. But that's what you get. And how can you know the real position if you're acting like the brothel owner? Do they know what's going on, or are they're making so much money it doesn't matter?
Oh, they know what's going on, and they're making so much money. It's it's not funny. But the worker that they have, or the workers they have, are also in a cash economy as well. So it does filter down an awful lot, and it to me becomes just far too complicated. I'd much rather put P&L accounts, have some adjustments with their accountants, work with them, and use that and pin it to a contract as being true and correct, rather than saying something to somebody which I have no personal evidence of, and if I'm saying something that someone said to me and there's no evidence of it, we're obviously liable ourselves.
Well, it's a fast way to destroy the Argyle brand.
Absolutely, and it is paramount that we deal with quality businesses. And we're renowned for that. I know that, and it's the repeat work. I've just sold one a couple of weeks ago. Business that they bought it from us. They were 45. It was 20 years ago. They're now 65. They're retiring. They came back to us. We sold their business in a fairly short space of time. I understood the business. I had good history on it. We did a very good profile on that business, and I sold it to another person of the same name, who's 45. I had pleasure in saying this is what you will look like in 20 years' time.
And we won't need to. We'll save money on the conveyancing because we just need to change the first name. If you chose characteristics of good businesses you want to sell, are there 3 or 4 that you say, okay, well, these are the ones I want to work with?
I think the first thing that we look at obviously is profitability and what that business does for that proprietor. That is the thing that stands out more than anything else. Sometimes you will take something on because you know you have someone on your database who would value add that to what they already have, and they've got a fair business, and this would make it a much better business because of scales of economy. You're often impressed with people's lifestyles, and if they've got that earlier question, that lifestyle work balance sorted out, and I am amazed at the amount of people who say to me, I work all these hours but don't tell the buyer. And I said, well, aren't we better off telling the buyer to see if they can sort it out a bit better? But again, it comes down to people not being able to control their own lives.
Yeah, it was a loaded question. I love the response as well, Graham, because I think when you see someone who has their life and work balance in place, then it implies the rest of the business is supporting that and a critical part. So it is about planning. And that
very,
sort of
very, very much so.
Yeah. The final one, 60 seconds on a rant or something that you wish you could change in business or...
I mean, I'm not a ranter, but the things I'd like to see is I think our local government, our state government and our federal government, the red tape they put before a business proprietor is amazing. They all stand on platforms to say that we're going to reduce that. After 32 years, going into my 33rd year as a business broker, once upon a time a file in a business sale was this big and you get the sale through in 4 weeks. Today we have all this technology. You're talking 3 times the time. Why is that happening? It's because of the compliance that's put upon people. That's my start of my first 30 seconds. My other 30 seconds is I'd just like to see more lenders and quality bankers in our system. We've got a miserable banking system in Australia. We have miserable bankers who are unfortunately brainwashed by the powers to be, who we never get access to, and they sell policy which I think is unfair in many instances.
Are there banks or institutions we should be supporting as businesses who we can encourage?
I think there's a great opportunity for the building society to move away from the home loan only. Some of them are doing that. Newcastle Permanent and David Coles is doing that, and a lot of the other building societies and non-bankers are moving into that level, but just very, very slowly. It's a very, very good sector. It's a very profitable sector. If you look at the major banks, and not a lot of people know this, only 30% of their total income and profit comes from housing. The other 70% is institutional banking and business banking. So the the profit is definitely is there to be had. But at the moment, the business people just get hammered. And one of the craziest things I've been seeing very recently is the movement of bank personnel from one bank to another. So an ANZ guy will go to the Combank will go to ANZ, NAB will go, and so on. And I find that amazing, the change of personnel in banks. And I also find amazing the banks' attitude to businesses are very, very similar, not unlike probably petrol fixing.
Yeah,
very similar.
I would have wondered why. I guess if they're good enough, they're being offered more money to translate. But you know, it's a bit like the Titanic, isn't it?
Well, yeah, definitely. And why, if they are good at what they do, why wouldn't where they've been pay them more? And because they've got to go somewhere else and take someone else to replace them, often offering them more. I was at a bank seminar recently, and one of the junior managers stood up in the conference, and he said, why don't we look after our own customers? So this awful bent on all banks to, you know, who can you poach? And there's a great beating of the chest. Oh, I've just stolen that account from that bank. And next week that bank steals another account from another bank. And if only the banks could realise they should look after their own customers, they may have a better business.
Was there an answer to the floor, from the floor, to why they don't?
It was just groans, I think I heard, yes.
That young person should sit down.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Across the regions you deal with, what can we learn from the metropolitan areas to our north and our south?
You'd be surprised what we do here on the Central Coast is replicated many times in Sydney metropolitan area and the greater New South Wales area. I'm a member of the Australian Institute of Business Brokers, and we have business brokers all over Australia that I have access to. And they do exactly the same as I do in their region. So it might be the Sutherland Shire, or Blacktown. We do the same thing for the same people. It's where someone is domiciled. So most people will be domiciled within a reasonable area of the business premises. You are the same, I am the same, and Bob, cameraman, is the same. And it is no difference. And I used to think it was, until I got involved in the association many years ago and found out that it's exactly the same. If I get a business in Sydney, I often will go to one of my colleagues and we'll do a conjunction arrangement because they can service it better than I can because of their locality. Likewise, if there's a multinational or a large organisation on the Central Coast that we're selling, you may well find that the buyer comes through another medium, another agent to us, and we also then service that through a conjunction arrangement. And we've got a couple on the table at the moment which are over $10 million, which will not hit a newspaper. We don't advertise or promote. We just are talking to large multinationals and trying to put a deal on the table for a presence here on the Central Coast, taking over a very large business, but that business is a family-owned business and should really be into the is ready. Its next move is to go into a multinational situation. Yeah.
We sometimes think of ourselves as the more casual, slightly less sophisticated, more relaxed business environment here on the coast to in Sydney. Is that a beat up? Are we different people when it comes to business here than?
No, we're exactly the same. And again, I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday, and he was about to go sailing. So he wasn't working yesterday. Yesterday was sailing because it was a Thursday or Wednesday, whatever. Yeah. Wednesday sailing.
Wednesday afternoon sailing. Yes.
Yeah. So no, I think that's a perception that some people have in their mind, but in reality, it's no different. People still get up in the morning and go down the beach in Sydney and do what they do and have a run and have a coffee and get ready for work, and off to work they go. It's exactly the same. What we have here is different demographics. We have older people, we have a high unemployment, because it is, if you're going to be unemployed, it's probably better to live down Shelley Beach than it is in Blacktown. And the chances of work in Blacktown are probably greater. And again, talking to a business fellow yesterday in Blacktown, he has 5 people who travel from the Central Coast to go to work. Now those people could work here on the coast and there's work for them, the wages are lower. So they take the choice of spending 4 hours in a car round trip each day, 5 days a week, to earn more money, where I would rather earn less money, work for someone up here, and if I could show them I'm good enough, they may pay me more money.
When it does come to wages, and that's an extraordinary compromise or equation when you think that they value their 4 hours travel as, well, I wouldn't have earned any money there, where they could have come up here and earned a little less. If we talk about earning less, is that, for me, that's a flawed mentality for an employer to be paying less on the coast?
Oh, most definitely. I give you many examples. A good a legal secretary into the city can earn themselves $80,000 a year. They're pushed to get $50,000 a year here on the coast. A friend of mine was a secretary manager of a club in Sydney, and Lexus motor car, all the perks, probably, you know, $150,000, $200,000 package, comes to a club here on the coast and probably earns half that. He decided that the lifestyle of not having to go down sometimes 6 days a week in the traffic and back again in the traffic down that awful road they call a freeway, which is just a dual carriageway at best. That was the lifestyle decision he made. What I think the problem then arises that some of our good industries don't attract the best people because we don't have the right wage structure for them. But some industries will come here purely and simply because of the low wage, and especially if it's menial work and low skill level. You'll see people leaving the Sydney metropolitan area to come for cheaper land, cheaper rent, and a cheaper workforce, and often have a workforce that they are in control of, rather than parts of Sydney the workforce controls the business.
So it is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that we will pay less,
yes,
and then that's where we value our business as well? Yes,
I think so, and I'd like to think it's improving. I think it is, but it's a very, very slow road. A very, very slow road. It is improving. I do meet people who do value their staff and pay them above award wages and pay them on true performance. I met a very, very large company on the Central Coast who were a retailer, and they wanted to franchise. And in one of the discussions of that, one of the owners, one of the proprietors, and I'm talking at the time they were the largest employer of the Central Coast, and I said, what incentive do your managers get from a salary point of view if their sales are higher? And the answer was a bloody job on Monday. Awful attitude. We sold the business to a non-expert in the industry, and within the first week the sales went up by $7,000 or $8,000. And all this person had was a good attitude and a good worth ethic, but no experience in the particular industry, where the staff had experience, but they had no enthusiasm, because whether they took $50,000 in the week or $30,000, their salary was the same. So there was no job satisfaction or fulfillment from that company. And we ended up selling quite a lot of the stores off as franchises, because clearly they weren't a retailer, but they were a very good producer.
Excellent. Okay.
I owned a couple of retirement villages with a couple of doctors, and we couldn't keep our managers very long, and they would stay for 1-2 years. And I remember saying to one of the managers, why do you leave after 1 or 2 years? He said, is it the money? No. He said, I don't like this working 7 days a week. I said, oh, never thought about that. You're the manager, you live on site, and you do whatever you want to do, and work needs to be done. And so we thought, well, let's get a manager in who works 5 days a week, and we'll have an assistant manager who works 2 days a week and do holiday relief and stuff like that. And away we went, and things started going really well. But maybe 3 years they were leaving. And why are people leaving? And I went to a seminar and met that guy from Telstra, Ziggy.
Yes, I know.
Kalowski.
Yes.
I'm standing at the bar drinking my soda water with him, and And just general chat. He just gave a great presentation on about quality of people. Your business is about quality of people. And I told him the story I've just told you. And he said, what do you pay these people? I said, as a husband and wife team, a house, you get a car, phone, gas, all that sort of stuff, about $80,000 a year plus commissions on sales of homes. He said, could you pay someone $200,000? And I said, oh, yes, we probably could. He said, why don't you do that? Next time your manager leaves. So I'm back and told my doctor partners, who fell off their chair, and I said, well, think about it. One, we can afford to pay it, and will they give us better results? When the managers did leave, we put an ad in the paper for a circular of a couple of $100,000. We had a registered trained nurse, a husband, a chartered accountant came along, and when we talked to them about the package, they said, well, you know, we're looking for a lifestyle change. We earn twice that. And but the quality of people, what I'm trying to get to, the quality of people we met was amazing. So we employed them. Within the first 6 months, we added another $50,000 to their salary. Their salary package ended up being about $400,000 because of the way they did the sales and the budgets and the planning that was put into it. And they took a huge load off us as the directors and just did a report to us each week, each month, each quarter, where we used to do all that. And it just freed up this enormous amount of time that we had. And you get better quality people. I sometimes tell people this story when I go and see them, because I see poor management in their business. And I say, you're getting what you paid for. And I did this for 15 years before I got it right. So I am proof that this can happen. And I'm still amazed at people coming and see me, Bob and Mark, and they say to me, oh, we just want a little business. We don't want to be millionaires. And straight away I become very nervous about those people, because I said, well, why not? Maybe you should try it. It might be nice.
Yeah, and that big thinking is not a large step away. It's like getting your doctors to trial this, and it's choosing the right people. But we are self-restricting on the case. We think that person is, hey, they've got the lifestyle, so they'll accept anything, and then we'll offer them anything. Yeah.
Well, again, I see it all the time, and when we were interviewing people at this level, I felt very inadequate. I was meeting people that I've never met before because I think they should be in business for themselves. These people are quality people in every respect, and why they're working for somebody else. And I find out that they like to work for somebody else because they can prove what they can do, and they are then paid accordingly. And their high was coming into a place like our environment and showing me what they could do, and knowing full well that I was going to pay them more. I didn't know that at interview. They did. Yeah. They thought, we'll sort these blokes out, because we had our old managers in there interviewing them.
Indeed. We need fresh people here too. Big thinkers.
And
we've got good thinkers and big thinkers, but I think I lack courage in my business too, and Bob will testament to that, because we've made an investment here. We've got to keep growing it for Business Insider, but it needs to be big. It needs to be big. Yes. Thank you again. Did we answer?